February 6th, 2022, we lost our beloved Pekingese, Rocky. You can see Rocky here behind me. I wanted to take a moment to express my gratitude for his amazing life with us and for all of the moments that he gave me and the love that he shared with me that was so unconditional and so amazing. I know Rocky is enjoying his life right now somewhere much better than this. He's running and playing with Fancy and Annie, and he's waiting for me and for Lee when the time is right. Welcome to the Strong Enough podcast, where we talk about the challenges and celebrate the triumphs of people just like you. I'm your host, Claudia. Today's guest is going to share with us how she endured a 22-year marriage with a narcissistic, abusive individual. She's going to talk about how she was able to get out, heal herself, and now help other women do the same. Please help me welcome Denise Kavaliauskas. Denise, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well. As I mentioned, it is snowing out, and as many people know, snow brings me joy. So I'm joyful right now.
Yay for joyful, high energy.
Exactly. And I know in speaking with you earlier, you're a beachy person. So what kind of weather do you have right now?
Usually it says it. I think it's in the 50s here in North Carolina.
So that's a little chilly for the beach.
Oh yeah, no beach. No, we save that for the really warm days.
That's right. I used to work with a lot of people in Florida, and they would text me sometimes when they were at events and say, "Oh my gosh, it's so cold. We're outside. We're dying out here." And I would say, "Is it really cold or is it Florida cold?" And they would laugh and say, "It's Florida cold. It's like 60." So I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I'm nice. It's nice to have another North Carolina native on here, or living in North Carolina, as that's where I'm from. But before we just jump right in, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, where do I start? Well, how I am here doing what I do now is my journey from leaving a toxic relationship. So I was married for 22 years to the father of my children. We have 2 children together. And I married very young and had no clue of what narcissistic abuse was, had no clue what gaslighting and love bombing and all of that was. And finally, after 22 years of going through lots of traumas and dramas, I was in my 40s and I was like, okay, this isn't working. This is bad, because it was really bad. I picked up with nothing but a futon couch and an air mattress and moved from South Florida to here in North Carolina, and was here about 3 months total when the hoovering started, where he came back around and he was like, "We have 22 years together. We have a family. We have a history. We can't let it go. I promise I won't do this. I promise I will do this. Come back home. We're going to work it out. It's going to be great." Crickets. I did it. I packed up everything and went back to South Florida, where I'm from. And, that lasted about 5 minutes. And then I realized, crap, I got to do it all over again. So it took me 8 months to do it all over again, pack up everything and come back here. And that was 2012. So 2022 represents 10 years of being toxic-free, abuse-free, healing, no contact, creating an amazing life for myself. My life now is completely different from who I was and what I was living in from, it seems like a whole lifetime ago. Yeah, it's been a complete transformation. Yeah, in the 10 years.
Well, congratulations on the 10-year anniversary of your freedom and
Yes,
your new life. And
thank
that's
you.
what we're going to talk about is kind of your progression from being in that toxic relationship. And you brought up quite a few, I don't want to call them buzzwords, but somewhat new terms that a lot of us are starting to hear more about, like gaslighting and love bombing, and things that I think a lot of us have experienced, unfortunately, and didn't realize it, or maybe still don't realize it. So I'd like to start. You said you got married very young. Was
Yes.
it before or after your wedding that the behaviors really started to show themselves as narcissistic, even if you didn't recognize it at that time?
Before. Yeah. It happened, well, the love bombing and all that, like I didn't know what it was. That started immediately. And it was, yeah, there was several incidences before the wedding. And even the day of the wedding. The day of the wedding, something happened. And so, like I said, I was really young. I got married at 21 and had no clue. And yeah, it started before, but like I said, when you come from this type of behavior, you don't recognize it as dysfunctional or toxic or abusive. You think, oh, he's having a bad day, or oh, it's his upbringing, his culture, whatever.
Did
Yeah,
you think that you could fix him?
absolutely. Absolutely, I did. In fact, that was one of the things that I remember thinking that when we get married, I I'm going to show him what a great wife I can be, what a great mom I'm going to be. And that's going to make him realize how great I am, and that will change him. Yeah. And then there's a whole plethora of rescuing stories down the line after that. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people, and particularly women, I try not to pick on a gender in this because things happen to everybody, but I do feel like we as women so often have that feeling that we can fix this other person. Why do you think we feel that way so often?
So what it is there's this, well, a lot of empaths who are very much have a rescuer side to them, a savior side to them, because empathic people, men or women, look at everybody else and they only see the good in that person, and they want to see the good in that person. So even when that person shows up in a bad behavior, in a toxic way, they're like, oh, but I know that he or she can be good. I know that. So the work that I do, ironically, is I talk about the mother energy. And what the mother energy is, she loves too much, she gives too much, she does too much for everybody else, and she puts herself on the back burner. And when we're in mother energy, we're attracting child energy, which is what narcissistic personality is, right? They pout when they don't get their way, they yell when they, yeah, the whole thing. And so part of the mother energy, so what I just described to you was two of the main archetypes that we show up in life. And underneath those two, there's 11 sub archetypes. And one of the sub archetypes under mother energy is rescuer. And the rescuer is always trying to fix people, always wants to see the good in people, wants to help. They have such good hearts, they want to help. And so, like I said, they ignore the bad behavior because they see only the good. So that's my answer now with the person that I am now. The person who I was before was just, I loved him. And I wanted to have a family. I wanted to be married. And I loved him. I mean, that was it. Yeah.
Do you feel like the person who you were then that loved him, was there anything that you felt was missing in yourself that didn't allow you to feel like you deserved better?
Absolutely. I lacked in self love. I lacked in self worthiness. I had a lack of self esteem, self confidence, all of those things I had a lack of. So yeah, I love myself. And what I describe, how I describe it is that if somebody would have asked me do you love yourself? I would have said, yes, of course I do. I get my hair done, I get my nails done, I take a shower every day, I don't do drugs, I don't smoke cigarettes. Of course I love myself. But now I know all of those things are self-care. So there was, I didn't have good self-talk. The conversation in my head was very brutal to myself. So of course, if that's what's going on inside, it's going to replicate itself outside. So yeah, I had a lot of lack in myself, and that's ultimately why I attracted a toxic relationship.
Do you feel like that lacking and the negative self-talk, did that stem from your relationship with this individual, or do you feel like it stemmed from something prior to that?
Definitely prior. My upbringing, my surroundings growing up, I saw my mom and dad argue, fight, call each other names, pushing my mom down, very little physical abuse, but there was a plethora of emotional, mental, verbal, financial abuse. And then later on, when I grew up and moved out of the house, my dad decided that he was going to drink a fifth of turkey every day. So wild turkey. So there was that. And yeah, definitely it came from my childhood, my home, what I viewed as a relationship as normal. Yeah.
What have you done with your children to try to instill what actually is a good normal or what should be normal in a relationship?
So when I left my then husband, I call him my then husband, was been.
I love that.
Actually, a client of mine from a few years ago, she made that word, or she got it from somewhere, and I was like, oh, I like that. My children were teenagers when I did leave, 17 and 16. So, and my healing journey didn't start until they were probably in their early 20s, because they're almost reaching 30.
How is that possible? Because you can't be more than 40.
I am
You don't
way
have to
older.
say,
Yeah, way
but
older than 40.
I'm just saying you look
Thank you.
40. So
So, yeah, but when I did start my healing journey and now being in a healthy relationship, so here's the thing that I would love for your audience to really realize is when you heal yourself, it ripples out to the people closest to you. So think of like the flat lake and you being the pebble. So when you heal yourself, you being the pebble going into the flat lake, that's the ripple, and it ripples out. So immediately it's right close to the ripples, and then it stretches out, 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 out. So once I went through my healing journey and I'm now in a healthy relationship, my children, who are now, like I said, in their 20s, started to see, oh, that's what a real relationship looks like. Oh, okay. So my daughter's in therapy because she went through a big trauma with her dad when she was 14. She's still in therapy, but she reads the self-love books. In fact, it's so funny because in 2017, she was like, Mom, did you ever see this book? Did you ever read this book? And I was like, no, what is it? It's Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It by Kamal Ravikant. And I was like, no, I've never seen this book. I loved it so much. I used it for my clients in my group coaching because it's an easy read and it had so much information. It was so great. So yeah, so it ripples out to them. And so now they're still working through some stuff because when you go through your healing journey, I'm sure you know, Claudia, you realize that we each have our own paths and I'm not responsible for their healing. They have to decide, like, this is what I need, this is what I want. And if they come to me, of course, then I'll guide them, but I don't push anything on them. I don't force them. It's totally up to them and what they choose for themselves.
you don't have to talk in depth about this, but do either of them still have a relationship with their father.
They do. They do. It's not, you know, it's not a relationship. It's very dysfunctional, but they do. Yeah.
So I want to ask you about when you decided that it was time for you to leave, because it sounds like there was a period of time between leaving and then leaving again, and when you really started to heal yourself. So what did it look like for you when you realized this is not good for me? I have to go.
It was August 24th, 2008. And I know the date so well because it was a pivotal moment in all of our lives. It's the day that my then husband decided that he was going to attempt suicide with our 14-year-old daughter in the next room. So yeah, so it was that day. And my son and I, so my son was 13, she was 14. My son and I went to the store, which is like 4 blocks away. And our daughter was in the shower, and my ex had locked himself in the bedroom. Nothing new. He was depressed. Like it was almost normal. That day I told him I wanted a divorce, and I meant it. Like I had meant it before all the other times, but I don't know, something shifted that day. So my son and I went to the store and got lunch, and I told him, go ask your dad if he wants anything. And he said no. So we went to the store, and when I came back, it had happened. So I walked into the house. So we were living at my parents' house, and it's a very small house. So when you walk in, there's the living room, and very close by, there's like a, I don't know, like a foyer room or whatever. It leads to the 2 bedrooms. Mm-hmm. And that's where my daughter was with her dad on her lap, moaning in pain that he had shot himself. And she was hysterically crying, and she was on the phone with 911. And I walked into this. So I had no clue. I knew he had guns. This was so ironic of how our brains really protect us. I knew he had guns, but my brain didn't go to he shot himself. My brain went to he stabbed himself. And I can only assume that that was for me protecting me, to not realize the depth of what had just happened. So I remember walking in and just like in shock, of course, and just saying, what the fuck, all over, like over and over and over. Are you crazy? Are you crazy? What the fuck? And then following the blood trail from where they were in like the foyer area back into the bedroom, and looking in the bedroom, just trying to figure out what happened. And I saw pills all over the place. The cop said that there was a note, but I don't remember seeing the note. You know, when you go through a big trauma like that, you barely remember anything. And that day I had told him I wanted a divorce. So when the cops came and they separated my 2 children and me, took him to the hospital via ambulance, and questioned us, like what happened, what led up to this. I remember the female police officer handing me a card for a restraining order for domestic violence and restraining order. And I was like, domestic violence? What? That it didn't compute to me then. Restraining order? Why would I get a restraining order? That's insane. So I did it because I was just following like the protocol, and I was so like lost back then. I could not even think straight. So I went and got the restraining order, and and I remember when I filled out the form for the restraining order, the woman at the courthouse, the woman said to me, she's like, honey, this is not going to get approved for a restraining order. She said, it has to be that he hit you or he touched you in some way for this domestic violence. And I was like, oh, well, he didn't. And she said, well, has he ever? And I was like, well, yeah. She said, well, write that down, write that incident down. And then it got approved. So that was the day that I was like, told him I wanted a divorce, but I didn't leave him then. So my kids, you know, they were like, Mom, please, let's go to the hospital. Let's go see Dad. After I cleaned up everything and took care of that, we went to the hospital, and I really didn't, like, I was so emotionally disconnected from this whole thing. Like I felt for my kids, but I couldn't feel for him. because I just thought, as a parent, what the fuck were you thinking? Why would you do this with your 14-year-old daughter in the next room? Like, if you're going to do something like that, not here with your child in the next room. So anyway, yeah, so that was the first time that I told him that I really wanted a divorce, but I didn't actually leave until 2.5 years after that incident.
I have a lot of questions.
I'm sure.
Do you think that was his plan? That he really was trying to keep you from leaving him? He was, again, trying to manipulate you into staying.
Yeah. Yes, I do. Yes. Yeah. A lot of people told me after the fact that that was to get attention. And I couldn't grasp that idea, because I was like, who the hell would shoot themselves to get attention? Like, that's just insane to me. Like, run away, or I don't know, like, do something different, but not that.
It is
Yeah.
extreme. I agree.
Yeah.
But that was honestly where my mind first went to when
Mhm.
you talked about him being a narcissist. And I'm thinking, okay, well, a narcissist isn't necessarily going to actually want to commit suicide necessarily, but it's a great way for them to manipulate and gain the power and the attention back on themselves. It's quite an
Yeah.
extreme way to
Yes.
do it.
Mhm.
Did you ever learn the contents of the supposed note?
Yeah, I think they told me about it, but it was evidence.
Right.
So I never actually got my eyes on it. So I never saw it.
I was just curious if it was also kind of a manipulation
Oh, I'm sure.
in
Yeah.
the letter.
Yeah.
Something else I found really interesting that you just said is he shoots himself, but the police officer is encouraging you to go get a restraining order. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about how that unfolded in a time when they're investigating, a suicide attempt, but then they are noticing that you are exhibiting signs of being a victim?
Yeah. So, I mean, they see this all the time. So they know. And in fact, after that, when I did get the restraining order and we were at the house, I remember CPS came to the house, and I was so humiliated by this, because I, like, love my kids, take care of my kids. Like, when you think CPS, you think like dire straits situations, but guess what? It was dire straits situation. I just didn't view it that way, right?
Mhm.
So, and I remember her coming into the house and asking me a bunch of questions. And of course, I had a big chip on my shoulder because I was like, this is not for me. Um, she saw a bat in the house and she was like, you need to get rid of that because it's a weapon. Yeah. And then went into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator and looked to see if there was food in the refrigerator for my children. And I was like, oh my God, this is so humiliating. It's so embarrassing. Like, of course I feed my kids, of course. So, so the process was, they see it every day. So they can spot it out that this is a domestic violence relationship situation. And that's why she handed me the card. And, I never realized, well, not never, but for a long time, I didn't realize that I was in a domestic violence relationship. And the other day, or a couple of weeks ago, my daughter and I, she's now 28, we were talking. She was like, oh yeah, mom, you were definitely in a domestic violent relationship with dad. But I never viewed it that way because the physical part was just sometimes, it was
Mhm.
just once in a while, right? But and this is why I talk about the what is really domestic violence, that it doesn't mean that they are physically putting their hands on you. They are mentally and emotionally and financially doing things to you, violating you. It's not always the physical, but it's still domestic abuse.
I'm so glad that you said that, because that is still a common misunderstanding or misperception, I feel like, in a lot of individuals is they think, well, he or she is not hitting me, is not kicking me, slapping me, so it just is fine. It is what it is. And I don't want to minimize any kind of abuse, but honestly, I feel like sometimes the repercussions and the long-term issues from emotional abuse, financial abuse, and things like that can often be more damning than physical
Yes.
abuse.
They last a lot longer. Yes. Yeah. The trauma bonding, all of it. It lasts a lot longer. And I've even spoken to victims of the physical abuse, and they agree, and they say the same thing. The bruises and the broken bones, all of that heals way quicker than the emotional stuff does. Yeah.
I do want to take a moment to give a thumbs up to that police officer, just because I know sometimes we feel like, and me even as a former police officer, feels like a lot of times when it comes to domestic violence, police don't always do enough. And it's not because they don't want to necessarily, it's maybe because they don't understand, they're so overwhelmed with their workload, whatever it may be, that they just don't always take that extra step. So I do just want to acknowledge that, you said they see it all the time and they know it, and that is true. But for that officer to take that extra step and give you that card and encourage you to do that really was something that probably changed or helped to change the trajectory of your and your children's lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hollywood Police Department. Yeah.
So you didn't leave then,
No.
but let's talk about when you finally left the second time. How long was it between then and when you really decided to work on yourself and start your healing journey?
So from the event that I just described to when I left the second time, or really left the first time, was 2.5 years. So it's 2011. And then again in 2012. I didn't start my healing journey until 2014. And it's actually like I went a roundabout way, because at that time I did not know still what I had been through. I was just happy I got away from it. I was just happy that I escaped that. And what I did was, so I ran his business, which was an air conditioning and appliance service business down in South Florida. So I had that freedom of having my own, my own business. And so when I came here to North Carolina, I was like, I had to go get a job, right? And what my experience was medical. So I did medical sales. So I got a job and doing medical sales. And I was like, oh, this sucks. I don't like doing this shit. So that led to, Facebook, and it loves to give you what you like. So I'm liking all this law of attraction stuff and online business. And I kept saying to myself, I want to have an online business. I want to like be poolside or be by the beach and, be typing away and having clients and making money. But I had no idea what that really was. So actually my healing journey started with hiring a business coach. And with the business coach came with a shifting of the mindset, right? And she taught us, because I had no idea of what kind of a coach I was going to be. Because remember, at the time, I didn't even know what I had been through. So I was like, oh, I guess I'll be a divorce coach. I don't know. So she taught us how to create an online audience. So with the online audience, I would reach out to experts and I would interview them. And then I created like an online event. Well, through that, I found my empowerment coach, and I really resonated with her, like everything about her. I have a thing for blonde women because my business coach was a blonde woman. My empowerment coach was a blonde woman. And so she was a guest on my event. And then she offers this program. And I was like, oh, cool. Let me get into this. Well, when I got into that, it was a 3-month program. I went into that 3-month program over and over and over again of a total of 18 months. Because once I got in and I started to learn things about myself and oh shit, oh this, that, like I started to realize the what I had been through and that he's a narcissist and all the things, right? And then um and then after that, it was really because she talks about narcissistic personality disorder and how they show up in the child energy. And I was like, oh, and she said, the more you mother, the more they act in the child energy. The more you mother them, the more they act in the child energy. I was like, oh my God, that's so on point. So, so that's how I got into my healing journey. It was, God and the universe going, here's the little breadcrumbs, follow them. And I did.
I believe that happens quite often for us if we pay attention,
Right.
whether you believe, and not you, but you in general, believe in
Right.
God or just another spiritual being or just the universe. I believe, God puts us in the places that we're supposed to be, and we just have to be willing to accept them.
Listen, yeah. Listen to what's being,
Right.
the signs.
I love what you just said. I mean, it's sad, but I love what you just said about the child energy and the mother energy, and that the more that you portray that mother energy or release that energy, the more they release the child energy. So it sounds like just a vicious
Yes.
cycle of you trying to fix the person and that person just using that child energy to want more, more, more. And it
Mhm.
just is so hard to get out of, it sounds like.
Yeah, especially because you don't know what's happening, what's going on. And so when I look back at my relationship, the more I made so when he attempted the suicide and he lied to everybody, I was going along with the lies, right? So I was making excuses and I was covering up. So the way I describe it is think of like the mom with the spoiled little boy, Johnny, right? That's just the name that I kind of came up with. And so mom pulls up to, school pickup and the teacher comes out and she says, oh, Mrs. K, Johnny was acting out today. He was disrespectful or he did, X, Y, and Z in school. And the mom says, oh, I'm so sorry. He had a bad night last night. He didn't get to bed on time and he didn't get a lot of sleep. And this morning we were in a rush and he didn't get breakfast. So he's just having a bad day. And that's what it's like, but with two adults.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How do you shift that energy?
Ooh, that's a good question. So think of a triangle. So this is the three ways that we show up energetically. So the mother energy falls on one of the bottom points of the triangle, and then straight across is the child energy. And at the top is the woman energy. So some people call it feminine energy, the divine feminine. And what all it is, and this is what I tell women, because when women come to me, they say, I'm broken, I feel broken, I feel damaged, broken, damaged, something's wrong, what's wrong with me, right? And I tell them, I said, none of that is true. You're not damaged, you're not broken, there's nothing wrong with you. All that is happening is you're in this energy, you're in the mother energy. That's why you're attracting the child energy. And all you have to do is heal the unhealed child wounds that the mother energy is in, and you'll naturally shift up into the woman energy. And once you're up here, you don't attract down here anymore. You're attracting across, right? So then you're attracting adult energy or man energy. So I love to say it like that because one, it's 100% true. And two, like it hurts my heart when I hear women say, what's wrong with me? I'm broken, I'm damaged. And they think that that's true about them. I like to set the record straight that that's not true. It's just wounds, and wounds heal.
What I also like about what you said is that kind of explains why we sometimes feel like, or I'll speak for myself, why I felt like for a period of time, I was attracting the same shitty people.
Right. Yep.
Same situation, different name.
Yep.
But it makes sense now because until you get out of that mother energy, you're going to keep attracting the child. It's just going to be a different child.
Right. Yep. Same energy, different body, different person, but the same energy. Yeah.
How hard was it for you, once you learned all this, to actually shift that energy?
I started in 2014, probably, well, I always say I'm always healing. There's always more healing to be done. I remember in my relationship now with my husband, before we were married, I remember in the beginning when I first moved in, we got into a disagreement, and I remember feeling the same way that I felt when I would argue with my ex-husband. And I had done enough coaching by then that I was like, okay, Denise, this is you. This is about you. This is not about him. Because he wasn't being mean or disrespectful. I was just noticing that I was feeling the same way, right? Probably in victim energy, poor me.
Mm-hmm.
So I like separated myself, and I went in and I used my tools that I had from being coached and solved that, whatever that was at the time. And we like, this is what I want everybody to understand. Relationships are not hard. I know that everybody thinks it's hard and society says it's hard and divorce rates are this and that, blah, 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 blah. When you focus on yourself, when you heal yourself, you will know how to have a healthy relationship because you have a healthy relationship with you. Everything begins and ends with you. So when you get your house in order, then you can have healthy relationships, because when you're healthy, you're not going to attract toxic, unhealthy energy. You're going to attract healthy. And when toxic people show up, you're going to recognize that so quickly. So to answer your question, I would say probably a year and a half, probably the 18 months that I was in that cycle of the program. But also I would say that the healing never stops. Like I'm still working through stuff. Like just now when you were asking me about the suicide, like I felt my body get a little bit like anxiety. And I've talked about that so many times, but there's still a little something there. So the healing never ends, but it gets easier and easier and easier. So like now when I see myself being challenged with something, I'm like, bring it on. Bring it on. Let's do this. Where before, there's a lot of tears and I was scared and all of that. So yeah.
But you kept going through it, even with the fear and the tears, you kept pushing yourself forward. What is it like for you now to be in such a healthy, loving relationship, not only with yourself, but also with another human being?
It's like paradise. It's like nothing that I ever even thought was possible, and it gets better and better because I'm so happy that I get to be the example for my children, to show them like you don't have to be like me and dad, right? So my daughter was in a 7-year relationship and it was a carbon copy of her dad and me. And then she got out of that and now she's in a healthy relationship. So it's amazing. We travel, beach, speaking of beach, we have a beach place that we bought last year. Now we're working on getting one down in Florida. And like, there's no arguing. Like we disagree, of course, on things, but we agree to disagree because I've learned through my healing journey that I can't change anybody. I can only change me. So I don't try to change him or anybody. Like that's your opinion. You have a right to feel and think and have your opinion, and that's totally fine. Like I respect your views and I'm respected. So it's paradise. That's paradise.
Paradise.
Yes.
Was there a correlation between your healing journey and you being the pebble on the still water, creating that ripple, and your daughter ending her unhealthy relationship?
Absolutely. Because when she got into the relationship, I had not even gone through my healing journey yet. It was when we first moved here the second time. So like 2013, I think is when they started to date. So we were both very wounded. And so wounded people attract wounded people and hurt people hurt people. So she attracted somebody who was literally a carbon copy of her father. In fact, he was from South Florida too. And the same nationality was crazy. Yeah. Um, yeah. So, and then that ended about 2 years ago. Yeah, I think 2 years ago that she's been out of it and done with that abusive relationship.
How good did that feel for you? Because I know, as you said earlier, we can't control other people's actions, and you can't control what your kids do and what types of relationships they're in. So did you really feel that you kind of had a part of that just by healing yourself and being that example?
Yeah, because I know that it does have a ripple effect. And the other thing is that it was, it gets easier as I heal to let my children be who they are and let them have their own lives. But the other thing is my daughter didn't tell me a lot of things that were going on. So I didn't know like the depth of what was going on behind closed doors. After the fact, she did tell me. So I didn't know, but also I did know it was toxic, but I trust her enough and love her enough that she was going to make the right decision. Like my best friend and her sister were like, "Aren't you worried they're going to get married or she's going to get pregnant?" And I honestly was so confident in my answer, saying, "No, she's smarter than that." Even though it doesn't look like that right now, she's smarter than that.
I love that even after 22 years of marriage, that you still valued yourself and were ready to make a change. I feel like a lot of people get to a point where they think, well, gosh, I've been with this person so long. It's not worth it to try to make a change. It's not worth it to do anything differently. So can you speak a little bit to those people about how no matter how long it's been, there is value in doing something better for yourself and for those around you?
That is such a great question. So what I would say, I'm going to get pretty deep and woo-woo on your
Love it.
audience. What I would say to them is that you're love, you deserve love, you are love, you don't deserve abuse. And this person came into your life to teach you something. And when you learn from this relationship or this person or these experiences, you'll never recreate that again because you've learned the lesson. And that's the beauty in it, right? And it doesn't take, like you asked me, how long did it take? It doesn't take 10 years. It doesn't take 50 years to recover. 18 months. And, I'm still working on things, but 18 months and then I'm in a healthy relationship. So I would say you deserve to be happy, prosperous, healthy, wealthy. You deserve to have joy and peace. That's the biggest thing that women tell me is they want peace because there's such chaos in their mind and in their world. And you were born to have all of that and that you can have that. It is accessible to you if you just reach for it.
That wasn't too woo-woo. That was amazing. Talk a little bit about the type of coaching that you do. Who is it for? Who can benefit from it? Who should be thinking right now, this could be for me?
So I coach women and men. I talk to women in my emails and things like that because that's my experience being in a relationship with a man. And so my ideal client is divorced because like me, she's out of it. But what's happening is she's dating and she's realizing, oh, crap, I'm like, this is the same type of person as my ex. And she doesn't know what she wants, but she knows what she doesn't want. And she doesn't want a repeat of the past. So she's searching for how to fill that gap. How do I get to what I want or even know what I want and not have the past? One of my quotes in my book is that I didn't know what the future held, but I knew this, it was better than the past. And so my ideal client is divorced. She has older kids. She's dating. She wants to get married again, or she wants to be in a relationship again, but she doesn't want even a fraction of what she had before. She wants to experience what real love is. She wants to have her travel partner. She wants somebody who has her back, who genuinely loves her and respects her. That's a huge part of this, right? There's such disrespect in these toxic relationships. And she wants to feel respected because she's a good hearted person. She's genuine and she wants that equal to her to have as a partner and go through the rest of her life with, because, being alone sucks. So yeah. And then coaching, I have programs. I have two programs. One is for the woman who's either in the beginning of her healing journey or hasn't even started. I have a program for her. And then I have a program for the one who I was just describing, but she's been through the therapy. She's been through the counseling. She's even had coaching, but unfortunately she keeps attracting the same type of guy and she can't figure it out. So I have a program for her, and then I have private as well.
Perfect. You have mentioned your book.
Mhm.
Is that your book behind you?
Yes.
I thought so. Talk a little bit about what inspired you to write that.
So I wrote in two books before this book. I wrote chapters, and it was the book that I wrote in called A New Day Dawns, Breaking Up with Abuse. And in that chapter that I wrote, which was back in 2016, when I wrote that chapter, I was like, Denise, that's what you're supposed to talk about, narcissistic abuse, right? Because I hadn't navigated through the whole, what am I supposed to talk about? But other people saw it in me, but I didn't see it in me. And that book went international bestseller. So when I did that, I was like, and people were telling me, you should write your own book, you should write your own book. And I was like, okay. So when I was ready, because it's very therapeutic to write a book, very therapeutic. I went in and wrote my own book, and I described in detail of what the pieces that I shared with you here. So the suicide attempt and leaving and coming back and all of that is very in depth in there. His family and the whole, he was in the psych ward and all, just all the details of that. That's what inspired me really was the chapter that I did in the book about abuse. I was like, maybe I should just do a whole book and share what I had been through. And the last chapter was at that time, my husband and I were just got engaged. It actually happened I had to turn the book in January, and we got engaged the end of December. And I remember it was December, and I'm like, shit, I gotta turn this book in. I gotta finish this book. And I didn't know how to finish it. But what kept ringing in my head was, and it was Christmas time, was What a Wonderful World. Mm-hmm. That song kept playing in my head. That phrase kept playing in my head. And I was like, oh, maybe that's the name of the last chapter. And let me end it with a happy ending, right? So that's how it all came together, and it ended with the engagement.
That's a perfect ending. Very
right?
Nice.
Yeah.
You said it was very therapeutic. Mm-hmm. Was it difficult to write as well? Did you feel like you had to relive some of the traumatic moments that you went through? Yes,
very much so. In fact, I write in the book, I remember writing in the book saying, I'm shaking. I could feel my anxiety coming on right now as I'm about to, because I know what I'm about to share with you. And then I just worked through it. I remember I was at Starbucks because I'd go to Starbucks to do my writing. And I remember thinking that and saying that, and then just pushing through it to get it out. And then after I did that, because writing is so therapeutic as well, physically writing, it really helped. And I also remember there was a lot of parts that I don't remember that I had to call my best friend. We've been best friends since we were 12, and say, do you remember when such and such happened? Can you fill in the blanks? Because I can't remember for the life of me. Yeah, very therapeutic.
I would love to ask you, what is your A1 piece of relationship advice?
Go within. Heal the relationship with you. Because when you do that, you will have healthy relationships. Yeah. So love yourself. Right? Yeah. Love yourself, forgive yourself, trust yourself, and tell your truth. And when you can do those 4 things, you are very much on the healing path, and you will attract healthy relationships.
We have talked about some heavy things. We're going to shift it here before I let you go, and we're going to talk about something not so heavy. We're going to talk some tattoos. I love tattoos. I do know what my next tattoo is going to be. I don't know when though, but I would love to ask you about your most meaningful tattoo.
Oh, that's an easy one. So the most meaningful one is the one that I got in Colorado. I actually got all of them in Colorado except for one. And it's on my shoulder, and it's they're hibiscus flowers. So the one in the middle is the red hibiscus, and then there's two on the side, and they represent me and my two children. And so the one hibiscus is pink, representing my daughter, and the other one's blue, and then it has sunshine coming out from behind it. And then the one for my son, so at the time when I got it, we had an estranged, we weren't talking. And so on the leaf, it looks like a raindrop, but it actually represents a teardrop. So it's these 3 hibiscus flowers. It takes up my whole shoulder, the back of my shoulder. And that's my most meaningful. And it has a quote by, you ready? You're probably going to laugh. Dog the Bounty Hunter. And
I'm ready.
And the quote is, where mercy is shown, mercy is given.
Right on.
Yeah. I love dog.
I mean, you can't hate on dog, right?
Right.
So
he's the one who said, Colorado is the most beautiful state. Before I had ever gone there, he's like, Colorado is the most beautiful state. And I was like, damn, you're in Hawaii and you're saying Colorado is the most beautiful state? So that really encouraged me when the opportunity came. I was like, I'm going to see the state.
There is a local bar/restaurant. It's turned into something else now, but there are some dog stories from that place. So I'll share that with you later.
Cool.
Are there future tattoos?
I'm always open to another tattoo. I go through phases of, I want to get this, I want to get that. And then I don't. I have 4. So I kind of stopped when I was settled down, and I feel, I don't know, that was just my thing to go out and get a tattoo. Healing. But so, I'm not close to having another one. Sure, why not?
Love it. Denise, you have been amazing. I would love for you to share with the audience where they can find you if they are interested in your book, your courses, coming to hang out with you at the beach. Where can people find you?
At my website, trueloveaftertoxiclove.com. And in fact, if they click on the link that says ebook, they can just put their name and their email address, and they'll get the ebook version of the book, Empower the Woman Within.
That is awesome.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time today. I truly appreciate everything that you shared and all the advice that you have given. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a true honor.
I really hope you guys enjoyed my conversation with Denise as much as I did. I truly appreciate her willingness to share some of the most traumatic moments that she endured in her marriage. And I loved how she talked about the types of energy that we exude and how that affects what we attract in return. So remember, until next week, you are strong enough, you are worth it.